Day to you lovely people, it's David Anthony, the creepy bard, coming to you from the old city of Jerusalem. What, do you think I wouldn't come here a second time? Of course I'm coming here a second time. I like this city. Besides, there's a number of things I wanted to show you that I didn't get a chance to show you before. For example, this right here. You see, you'll recall that I told you that the Jewish Quarter is one of the only places in the old city where you can actually find archaeological stuff, where you can find ancient stuff, because the whole thing got blown up back in 1948, so they had a chance to dig down. And what we got right here is the old Roman road. This used to be the main street, the main Roman street, going right through the middle of the city. You got all these pillars going along the road, and over here you got various little what would have been little shops, little places where you could buy stuff. This is basically the old shuk. Remember the shuk that I showed you earlier? Basically, this is the much older version of that. And if we go down this way, we will find the Cardo. The Cardo, for those of you who might know Latin, means the heart. And the Cardo is basically the center of the city, and this is where you would have had the main courts. This is where the judges would have gathered to make decisions. This is where people would have gathered to do all sorts of business. Over here, you see a mosaic of the city of Jerusalem itself. So you can see on that mosaic, that street right there with all those little dots beside it, that's the road we just came from. That is that road. And that little thing right at the end, that is the Cardo, and that is where we are right now. Now, some of these stones are ancient, some of them are modern, but either way, it definitely gives you the idea of what this would have looked like back in the day. Good day to you lovely people, it's David Anthony, the creepy bard, coming to you from the Jewish Quarter. And right now, I am on my way to a synagogue that is known as the Churva, or the Ruin. Now, I had a hard time finding this initially, and I'll explain to you why in a minute. This synagogue was initially founded by Rabbi Moses, son of Nachman, also known as Nachmanides, also known as the Ramban. He founded this synagogue in the 14th century, but it didn't stay that way. It eventually got destroyed. After it was destroyed, it was rebuilt in the 18th century by Rabbi Yehuda HaChassid. That synagogue got destroyed. After that, it was rebuilt again by the students of the Vilna Gaon in the early 19th century. That one got destroyed in 1948 when the Jordanians took over the city. In 1967, when the Israelis retook the city, they decided that they wanted to rebuild the synagogue, but unfortunately they did not have the funds to be able to pull it off. So instead, they just rebuilt the main arch. One of the main arches of the synagogue they rebuilt as a sort of a symbolic gesture, just to say, we're back, we're rebuilding, and eventually we'll get around to rebuilding the whole thing. But yeah, it just kind of didn't happen for a long time. And the reason why it took me a while to find this place is because about 10 years ago, I visited here. And I saw the Churva 10 years ago. And when I saw it 10 years ago, that's all that was there. It was just that one arch. They hadn't rebuilt the whole thing yet. But it has been rebuilt, which is why I couldn't find it. I was looking around, where is it? Where is this thing? And then I saw the arch, and I realized, oh, there's the arch, and the rest of the building is there now. That's right, it finally got rebuilt in 2005 was when they started construction, finished construction in 2010, and there it is, the Churva, the ruin. Except it is no longer a ruin, it is now a big, fully functioning synagogue. If you can see behind me, that arch at the top, that is what they rebuilt in 1967. And then everything else got rebuilt over the last 5 years, and there it is now in all of its glory. If you go down into the basement, which I'm not going to do right now because they're holding prayer services and I don't want to disturb them, you will be able to see the ancient pillars, or not ancient, but medieval, the medieval pillars, the original pillars from the original structure in way down in the foundations. But yeah, isn't that gorgeous? Good day to you lovely people, it's David Anthony, the creepy bard. I am on my way to the Kotel Hamaravi, to the Western Wall. And right now, I am on top of the walls of the city itself, the Ottoman walls, the ones that were built by Suleiman the Magnificent. I'm technically not supposed to be here, which is why I'm stepping over fences. So yeah, I don't really care. That being said, arrow slit. Isn't that lovely? I'll explain to you what that is. There's a few more up there. Basically, again, this is built by the Ottomans. The arrow slit is a tiny little slit in the wall that gives you just enough room to look through and shoot an arrow out there. And you can see the city out through there. Isn't that lovely? Of course, here you get a better view. Isn't that beautiful? There's the city of Jerusalem down there. The modern city, not the ancient city. The ancient city is to my left. But as I go down here, there's a couple other things I want to show you before I actually get to the Western Wall itself. As I'm approaching the Temple Mount from the southern side. And you can see in front of me there is the Dome of the Rock in all of its glory. This is a much better view than the one I gave you before, and I'm very glad that you can see this. So from up here, there you see there's the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and that is the southern side of the Temple Mount right there. And if you can see behind me, behind those trees, you can't really see it now, can you? It's behind those trees. I'll go a little further up. But before I show you what's behind those trees, I'll just say at the bottom of the southern wall right there, going down that way, is the City of David. Now that garden is the area where they have done some archaeological digs on the City of David, but they haven't done all that much, because further down where the City of David would be, well, there's modern streets and modern houses and people live there, and so they can't really just bulldoze all that down. But those steps on the southern side, well, actually there are no steps there now, but there were steps back in the day, steps on the southern side during the Second Temple period, so we're talking 1st century AD or so, and those steps that used to be there would have led up to the main door that led into the temple itself. According to the New Testament, that would have been where Jesus would have turned over the tables of the money changers. And if you look behind me, I'm going to give you a much better view. There is Robinson's Arch, that protrusion that is coming out of the wall there. That was the arch that led over that valley on a bridge leading to the city so that people could get inside the temple. Let me see if I can point it out to you. There, that is Robinson's Arch. You'll notice that the bit of wall above that is there's a little bit part of the where the stones are slightly different from the ones on either side. Again, because there used to be a door there. I'm about to actually head down to the Western Wall itself. I'll see you soon. Just about to head over to the Western Wall, but before I do, I want to show you this gate over here. That is the Dung Gate, or the Sha'ar HaRachamim, depending on who you ask. And this is one of the things about Jerusalem. There's so many different peoples here. You got Jews, you got Muslims, you got Christians, and everybody's got a different perspective. So that gate over there, if you're a Christian or a Muslim, it's referred to as the Dung Gate. And it's referred to as the Dung Gate because that is the gate that they would take all the garbage out of. They'd remove it out there because that's the lowest part of the city. And you don't want to take your garbage out the higher part of the city, because then when the rain comes, all the garbage flows downhill and comes right back into the city. And you don't want that. So instead you take it out the lowest part of the city and you dump it into the valley below. But if you're Jewish, then that is the Sha'ar HaRachamim, which is the Gate of Mercy. And it's called the Gate of Mercy because it is the gate that leads directly to the Western Wall right over there. That is the shortest way to get there. So yeah, what you call something depends greatly on your perspective. Good day, it's David Anthony, the Creepy Bard, coming to you from the Western Wall. I have returned because remember those tunnels that I told you about? The tunnels that go, because Western Wall extends down and also extends that away. That little bit that you see, that's only a small fraction of the Western Wall. So yeah, the tunnels that you get to see the rest of it, I'm finally going to get down there. Hopefully they'll let me film down there and I'll be able to show you a bit of it. See you soon. I am now in the tunnels that go along the Western Wall underneath the city. Remember those tunnels I showed you in the other video? Told you I was going to go in them eventually. Well, now I'm here. Now these archways above me were built by the Mamelukes back in the 14th century. Basically, over here was where a lot of the Muslims were living at the time, and in order for them to get up to the Al-Aqsa Mosque, they had to go up a lot of stairs, a lot of ramps. It was a big hullabaloo, and the Mamelukes decided it was far too much of a hullabaloo, and so they decided, let's build these archways. And these archways were never meant for people to go in them. The fact that we're in them now is actually kind of odd. These archways were only meant to support the platform above us that they would build their houses on, so that way the houses could be up level with the top of the Temple Mount, and so that way they could go up onto the Temple Mount to go to the Al-Aqsa Mosque to pray. I'll show you a little bit more as we get further into the tunnels. Hey there, I'm still in the tunnels off to the western side of the Western Wall, and over here you will see another mikvah, because we haven't seen enough of these yet. There are actually 4 of these that have been discovered here in the tunnels off to the western side of the wall, and these are the mikvahs that would have been used by the priests themselves when they actually came up to go into the temple back when the temple of Herod was still functioning. See it further down the tunnel. I'm a little bit further down the tunnel, and right now I'm standing underneath what I believe to be part of what is known as Wilson's Arch. At least I think it is. It might be that arch down that way, or there's a lot of arches around here. It's easy to get disoriented. But yeah, what Wilson's Arch is, it was named after a guy named Wilson who discovered it, some British fella. Anyway, so Wilson's Arch was the support for a huge bridge that went from the middle of the Western Wall out into the middle of the city, so that there was this nice long ramp for the priests to go up when they went into the temple of Jerusalem in order to pray. Not just the priests, but also it was for rich people, so that way they wouldn't have to be amongst all the rabble, because the main entrance for the poor people, that was on the southern side of the Temple Mount. But no, the rich people got to go in over this Wilson's Arch on the western side, so they didn't have to be with all the smelly people. Just to give you a bit of an orientation as to where that bridge would have been. So remember where I showed you Robinson's Arch? It would have been to the left of that, basically to the left of where the Cotel that you can see above ground is right now. Basically right above where we entered in order to get in here in the first place. All right, I'll see you again soon. Behind me is what might be one of the largest hewn stones ever in the world. This is the Western Wall right here. We are in the tunnels right next to the Western Wall, and that's it. This stone was put here by Herod. And of course you know it's Herod because Herodian stones and all that. This little lip here that always got this edge. And this thing is enormous. These holes here, by the way, were not put there by Herod. Those were put by the Byzantines later in order to build a pool. I'll explain to you why later. But the thing is, this thing is enormous. Nobody knows exactly how he put it up here, but we know he did. So if anybody tells you that large stones were moved by aliens, no. This is one of the largest in the world, and Herod didn't need aliens. We don't know how he did it, but it wasn't aliens. I'm still in the tunnels going along the Western Wall. This is the Western Wall right here, but the lower part that's under, not just under our feet, but further north, under where the Muslim quarter is. The Muslim quarter is now above my head. And you can see all these Herodian stones. Now you can always tell a Herodian stone because it's got this thing going around all the sides. Because Herod the Great wanted to make sure that the stones that were used in the structures that he built were gorgeous and beautiful. And so he made sure to have each one have this little border etched in to the edge of each one. And if we look under our feet as we come along here, we can actually see down far to the actual bedrock beneath. And the stones just keep going down and down and down. And that's the bottom right there. That's the actual bottom of the wall up against the bedrock. I'll see you further down the tunnel. Another thing I want to point out to you, you'll notice that some of these stones have quite a bit of mold on them. This is because these stones are all made of limestone. Limestone is very porous stone. It absorbs water, and so the rainwater comes, the stones absorb the water and then just kind of seep it out over time. That is why those holes existed in that other huge stone that I showed you before. The Byzantines wanted to build a pool there, and so they needed to put plaster on the stones in order to be able to keep in the water for the pool. But unfortunately, because limestone is so porous, the plaster just ended up soaking up all the water from the stone itself and just ended up peeling right off. And so they put the holes into those stones so that way they could stick rods into those holes and then build another wall on the front of it. And that wall is what they would put the plaster on so they could build their pool. Almost out of the tunnel here, and I'll see you at the end. We are now on the street level, well, the ancient street level. Above me, those are the archways built by the Mamelukes. Up there, that is the Western Wall built by Herod. And below me are the paving stones. These are the stones of the street built by Herod along the Western Wall. Behind me over here, these are a couple of pillars that would have been the doorway to a shop along this road. And over here are some more paving stones, but they're not in the street. They're just kind of sitting there. That's because we're at the end of the road right here. This is where the road ended. Why did the road end here? Well, probably because Herod died, and after he died, the construction just kind of ended. So yeah, last day of work, I figured, oh, tomorrow morning we're gonna put these stones in the floor, and then Herod died, and like, now, job's over. That's bedrock right away. You can see this big niche carved out here because they were chopping away at the bedrock in order to extend the street up that way. But it just kind of never happened. So to my right is the very end of the street that goes along the edge of the western wall. And over here, just above the street, we have the quarry. This is a limestone bedrock, and you can see the stones they just started to carve them out, but they never finished because, of course, Herod died and the building project ended. So let's go over to there, and we'll probably get to the end of this tunnel at some point. So we've gone a little bit back in time. This is no longer Herodian. This is now Hasmonean. So we're talking 50 to 100 years before Herod. And this is actually an aqueduct that the Hasmoneans carved right out of rock in order to help divert flood waters, in order to keep the city safe from flooding. Because even though this is a desert, again, as I mentioned when we were at Masada, in deserts, it doesn't rain very often, but when it does, it rains like it means it. And you can often get horrible flash floods that can destroy things. And this, by the way, is just fascinating because on the one hand, human ingenuity, but on the other hand, just look at the layers of rock. Just by digging out this aqueduct, they have revealed all of the various layers upon layers of rock that have developed over millions and millions of years. And I just like saying that, millions and millions of years. It's almost, it's poetic in a way. It's David Anthony, the Creepy Bard, again coming to you from the old city of Jerusalem, from the Jewish quarter, and I'm a little bit lost. I'm not really sure where I am because the streets in this city are kind of all over the place, and now I'm in somebody's private courtyard. All right, let's turn around. So, because the thing is, this city predates city planning. Well, sort of. The Romans had city planning, but when the Roman Empire fell, the whole tradition of city planning just kind of fell along with it, and all that bureaucracy's gone, and so when new cities get built after that, they just kind of build wherever they feel like building. Now, again, I'm in the Jewish quarter, and as I told you, this place was blown up by the Jordanians in 1948 and then rebuilt by the Israelis in 1967. But when the Israelis rebuilt it, did they decide to go with a sensible city plan? A grid? No. Unless they found some archaeological stuff, in which case they turned that into an exhibit. They just rebuilt stuff on top of the old stuff. So there used to be a house there, they just built the house where it was. There used to be a street there, they just rebuilt the street right where it had been. And am I going that way? I have no idea. So yeah, and it's not just streets, because this is an old city on a mountain. So it's not just streets, it's also stairways and rampways and alleyways, and it's confusing as all get out. But I need to go east, so I'm just sort of generally winding my way east, or west. That's east. I'm going west. I'll let you know when I figure it out.